Hello everyone, welcome back to another video of SamSam Reacts. You might notice that we're filming in a different location today, and I'm just in another room of the house, so don't worry about it. Um, Today we're going to be watching a video called, oh, uh, it's translated into Spanish. I'm pretty sure it was called, What's Inside the Titanic? And if you saw my most recent community post, you'd see that I made a short about a Titanic that I built and me putting it on water to see if it floats. Long story short, you have to stick around till the end of the second part of this video to find out. And I say the second part because if you notice, this video is 22 minutes long, but kinda a bit too long. So I'm gonna divide this video into two parts to not bore you guys out completely. Okay, so let's do this.
The best way to learn about the Titanic is to see it in 3D.
That's true.
We'll start at the top on the boat deck and then go through the ship deck by deck. My favorite is
Really
the very
cool.
bottom of the ship, which has the engines which powers this massive ship.
Bro, this YouTuber, Jared Owen, he is one of my favorite YouTubers ever because like his animations are so detailed, and I haven't actually seen this video in a long time, so I'm rewatching it. But still, this guy makes incredible videos. You definitely should go subscribe to Jared Owen.
This is going to be a full tour, so I hope to share with you
Swimming
a few
pool.
things you may not know about the
Oof.
Titanic.
Yeah, I love this intro. Jared Owen animations.
Big thanks to The Ridge for sponsoring this video.
The Ridge.
They're going to be dive in now and
I
learn about
skipped
the
the
Titanic.
sponsor because like that's even more boring. That's probably even more boring than my videos. Wow.
Most people today are familiar with the story of the Titanic, but just in case, let's go over the basics.
I just realized something. You see these things right here? These like little like things that have this thing sticking out. I thought they were supposed to have kind of a 45-degree angle, kind of a 60-degree angle, kind of. And so I put that on my Titanic, but I can't change it because I glued it. But whatever. I didn't know they were supposed to be 90 degrees. No.
The Titanic was built in
Yeah,
Belfast,
thank you.
Ireland, starting in 1909.
Belfast, Ireland. When did Ireland get its independence? 1922, right? And then the Titanic was made in 1990. It started manufacturing, I think, in 1909. So yeah, technically it would be Belfast, Ireland, because the UK controlled Ireland at that time, and there was no Northern Ireland or Republic of Ireland. So technically this is correct.
3 years later, the ship was finished and ready for its maiden
1912 minus 3, that's 1909. Yeah, I think I was right.
voyage, or in other words, first trip across the ocean. Most passengers set sail from Southampton, England. Then it picked
I
up a
know
few
that.
more passengers in France and then Ireland. Then finally, we set sail across the ocean
So there
to
were probably some French, definitely English, and definitely some Irish. But I didn't know about the French part. So there were English, French, and Irish casualties. 3 countries.
New
It's crazy.
York. But of course, the Titanic never makes it.
Mm-hmm.
4 days into her journey, she hits an iceberg in the middle of the
Yeah.
ocean. It only takes about 2.5 hours for the ship to sink.
Yep. 2,000
There
people
were
died
only
that
enough
day.
lifeboats for about half of the people. However, these lifeboats were not filled all the way. Sadly, only about 700 people survived.
1,500, my bad. 1,500
Now here we
people died.
are more than 100 years later, and this is still the most famous ship in history.
Yeah, and because of that, we learned that we always have to put as many lifeboats as we can, like compared to the amount of people who are gonna be on the boat. The world learned that when the Titanic sunk.
The Titanic was referred to as an Olympic-class liner. There were 3 of them, sister ships. The Titanic sunk because of an iceberg, and then the Britannic sunk after hitting a mine in World War I.
Yep.
The Olympic, however, had a fairly successful career
That is
of
true.
about 24 years. All three sister ships were almost identical. Just a
Yeah.
few details were changed on the inside. When they
Yeah, the Olympic, like the Titanic looks like this. The Olympic looks like this, and the kind of the odd one out is the Britannic, which is white and green, which looks like this. So, yeah, you can kind
finished
of see why
building the
they're sisters.
Titanic, it was the largest ship in the world, being only a little bit heavier than the Olympic. The ship was 269 meters long. But to put this in perspective, here's a comparison to the world's largest
Wonder of the
cruise ship
Seas.
today.
Uh, is it still Wonder of the Seas? Um, I think it is. Maybe it is. I don't know.
The full name is the RMS
Hmm.
Titanic, and RMS stands for
Hmm.
Royal Mail
Exactly.
Ship. And in fact, yes, the Titanic did indeed carry plenty of mail on board.
Oh,
I'll show you where a little bit later. Let's look at some of the details on the outside of the ship. The front of the ship is called the bow. The
the
back of
bow.
the ship
The
is called the
stern.
stern. Then, instead of using left and right, they use port and starboard. Now, these are general sailing terms that are still in use.
So this is the bow. This is the part in front. This is the back stern. So if we were using informal terms, this would be the right. The starboard would be the right, and the port would be the left. Got it.
Today, not just for the Titanic. On the ship, we have 4 funnels. Coal is burned down below, and the smoke comes up the funnels. Only
Yeah,
3 of the
this is
funnels are
just for
used.
decoration.
The 4th one was added mainly for looks. The builders thought it might appear more powerful with a 4th funnel.
Oh.
However, this 4th funnel is still helpful for ventilation down below.
Mm.
These 2 large poles are what they call the
Mast.
mast. It was used as supports for the radio antennas and
Funny enough,
also
I noticed that the one on the bow is more straight than the one on the mast, but for my Titanic, it was the opposite. Actually, let me go get it. Let me wait. I'll be right back. All right, so here it is. It's still kind of wet. I don't know if you guys can see it completely. It's still kind of wet from when I recorded the footage of the short, but as you can see, this one is actually much more. What is it? Not. It's less straight than the stern's mast, but it looks like it was the opposite. Oopsies. I'll put this back here. Actually, can you guys still see this? I hope you guys can.
to carry the flags.
The U.S. flag.
Towards the front of the ship,
If
you
I'm
can
not
see
wrong, it was the U.S. flag, and then it was the White Star Line flag, and then on the smaller one, the one on this side, it was the naval flag of Britain.
the crow's
Uh-huh.
nest. This is where the lookout spotted the iceberg only a little bit too late.
Yeah, it's right here, I
The
think.
area in the front is called the forecastle deck.
Oops.
You can see the massive chains that attach to the anchors at the very front.
Hmm.
Going to the back of the ship, this area is called the poop deck. And no, this has nothing to do with bodily functions. It originated from the Latin word puppus,
Oh
which
yeah,
literally means
Puppis is a constellation in the southern hemisphere. It looks like this. Um, Me and my friends always used to joke about that one.
stern of the ship. So there you go, poop deck. I'm still getting used to the name, but that's what they
Mhm.
called it. This raised part is called the docking bridge. It was used by the crew to help guide the ship into the harbor.
This white part right here.
The Titanic also had several electric cargo
Electric
cranes
cargo
to help with
cranes.
loading and
That's
unloading at
what
the
they're
dock.
called. See, I put them at kind of like certain angles, but apparently they're supposed to be just 90 degrees. 90 degrees? No, no, not 90 degrees. 0 degrees. I've been wrong this entire time. I'm sorry.
There's also more cranes at the front of the ship. The Titanic had 3 massive propellers underneath the water.
1, 2, 3.
For comparison, here's the size of a
Oh
person.
my!
The propellers are
That's the dang. Those propellers were huge. That means that the size of a person in this scale would be about, dang, almost like 2 millimeters. Wow, that really puts things into perspective. Oh my gosh, my entire desk is getting wet.
powered by the ship's massive
Hmm.
engines. We'll learn about how these work later in the
Of
video.
course, later.
This
You
is the
keep
rudder
watching.
used to steer the ship.
Uh, Unfortunately, this one can't move. Yeah.
The ship was designed and built over 100 years ago. That means no computers, no
Mm-mm,
3D design
none of
software.
that.
This was all designed
Mm-hmm.
by engineering and craftsmanship. The Titanic had 10 decks inside.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of rooms. I like this music.
The very top deck is called the boat deck. Then
Yes, the
below,
boat
they
deck.
labeled the deck
While I was building that, the boat deck was a separate thing that you had to build apart. My God, why is this still so wet after I let it dry? Sorry.
decks with the letters A
The
through
A deck
D.
also.
But each of these decks
Yeah,
also
the
had
A
another
deck was also separate. This part of the B deck and this part of the B deck was also separate, and then the rest was just all together. Well, except the red part and the black part, and then the rest it was just separate. Dang, sorry.
name. So you could call it A deck or promenade deck,
Oh,
B deck or bridge deck, and so on. Then for the bottom two, we have the Orlop deck and the tank top.
tank top. I once wore a Superman tank top in one of my videos. I don't know why I did that.
This area has a lot of the ship's engines and machinery. Passengers are not allowed down
Hmm.
here. Let's see this from another point of view. Let's cut the ship right down the middle and see what this looks like.
Wow, that actually looks really cool.
A few things to point out. The first three funnels, you can see how they are
Yeah,
connected
except this
down
one.
below to the
Except the
boilers. They take the smoke and give it a
except
place
this
to
one.
go. Then, just like we talked about earlier, that fourth funnel isn't really needed. However, it still provided some ventilation to the decks
Hmm.
below. The first class passengers had two sets of stairs, the forward grand staircase and the aft grand
Mm.
staircase. The forward grand staircase went all the way down
Oh
to E deck.
yes. I've seen pictures and paintings of that. Uh, this is like I forgot what this is called. This is like a I used to know that. I had an entire phase of my life or like for like half a year or so when I was obsessed with the Titanic. I used to know what this was called, but not anymore.
Directly in front of it is the three elevators.
There were elevators back then?
Then we have the aft grand staircase over here, which doesn't go down quite as far, only down to C deck. Then here we have the staircases for the second class
Right.
passengers. And then the staircase for the third class passengers in the very back of the ship. This was all close to the steering machinery. This is why third class was sometimes referred to as steerage
Oh,
passengers.
I didn't know
So
that.
cabins for the third class passengers are here towards the lower decks, and here's where the second class
The Titanic
passengers
started
are.
sinking around like it. Let me show you. All right. So as you can see right here, it's leaking. It started to go like this. So the third class passengers were the ones that were most affected,
And the first class
and
passengers
the
got to
first class after, then the second class, and then it got split down the middle. And that's where, if there were still third class passengers in the stern side, they would die from concussions or getting squished by something.
stay on the highest decks and have some of the best views. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the layout
Right,
of the
yeah.
ship. Now let's go through each deck, starting with the boat deck.
No wonder this video is so long.
It gets its name because this is the deck where the lifeboats were
Right.
stored. They
I wish
split
I
the deck
could take out these lifeboats to show you how small they are, but I can't. It's all glued. But you can't see it. But these things right here, these are lifeboats. And this is a secondary lifeboat right here. Can you guys see it? I hope you guys can.
into several different areas.
Mhm.
As a second class passenger, the view of the ocean would be blocked by these
That's
lifeboats.
actually the entire reason why. Isn't that actually the entire reason why the Titanic didn't carry enough lifeboats? Because they didn't want to block the view of everyone. That even the first engineers and officers, they didn't want to block the view with the boats here, so that's why they didn't add as many lifeboats. The Titanic could have held 64, but it only ended up holding 20 lifeboats.
As a second class passenger, the view of the ocean would be blocked by these lifeboats.
So cool.
For the first class passengers, most of the deck doesn't have lifeboats. The builders wanted to make sure that the first class
Exactly.
passengers had the best view possible. This was one of the reasons why the
I just said
Titanic
that.
didn't have enough lifeboats. So the ship had 20 lifeboats in total,
That's
enough for
why
about half
boats nowadays, as you can see in this picture, they have lifeboats like, well, most boats have lifeboats around like the sides, so people can still see into the ocean, but still have enough lifeboats for everyone.
of the people on board. The idea at the time was that the Titanic was unsinkable. If an accident happened, these lifeboats would only be needed to ferry passengers and
There's
crew
a rumor that says that even some people, or the captain, in fact, or some of the staff said that even this boat, not even God could sink it, and that's primarily the reason why this boat sank because God got mad.
over to a rescue ship.
I might
As
sound
we
like
all
I'm
know,
joking. I'm
not
not.
having enough
I'm actually not
lifeboats was a
joking.
very bad idea. Each lifeboat is hanging on what's called a davit. If and
David.
when it's time to launch the lifeboat, the davit is swung out.
Ah. Oh.
Fill the boat with passengers and then lower it into the water.
All right.
Up towards the front of the boat is the bridge.
Yes.
This is the control
Right
center for
here.
the
Right
ship.
here.
This area is the wheelhouse, which is a good place to warm up on a cold night.
Hmm.
There are two wheels to control the ship's rudder, and then this is the engine order telegraph. They use these to communicate
Hey,
directly with the
I
engine room.
recognize the. Let me put it better so you guys can see it.
This is the engine order telegraph.
I
The
recognize this. That there's a game I used to play. It's called Floating Sandbox, where you could put all sorts of different ships on like a floating on an ocean, and you can make anything. It's really cool. I suggest you check it out. But this was used to control the ships. Like at the bottom here, there was like a place where like you could control the ship, but while still being able to see it on the water. It was really cool.
use these to communicate directly with the engine room. The bridge officer rotates the handle to whatever speed they want to go, and then the engineer moves his handle to confirm that they got the order. Behind
Oh.
this area is where some of the crew would sleep so they could be
Ah.
close to the bridge. This is the captain's quarters,
Hmm.
some of the officers' quarters, and an officer's smoke room.
Right.
This is the Marconi wireless room. This
Morse
is where they
code.
use Morse code to communicate with other ships in the area. Here's some rooms for just a few of the first class passengers. Here's the oh so famous grand staircase. It has skylights up above to let in natural light during the day.
I still can't remember what that's
This
called.
is the gymnasium with various pieces of equipment to
Oh.
exercise.
Whoops.
Here's the officer's mess
Officer's mess. It's crazy.
and the engineer's smoke room.
Oh, that's a smoke.
At the very back is the second
People
class
used to
entrance, which leads
people
down
used to
below.
smoke a lot back in the 20th century. And actually, people still do, which is really bad for your lungs. But people didn't know that back then.
So that's the boat deck, the very top deck on the
Oh,
Titanic.
speaking of the, well, not speaking because he's hasn't been talking about it for a while. But you know how the last funnel is supposed to be not real? Well, there's actually a difference between the real funnel and the real funnels and the fake funnels in my thing. But I didn't notice that until after I glued the fake funnel as the first funnel, which is supposed to be a real one. It got stuck, so I tried to remove it, but I couldn't. So it got replaced by accident.
Underneath is A deck, also known as the promenade deck.
Promenade, not promenade. Mm.
Plenty of covered areas to walk around the edge of the ship, with amazing views towards the ocean.
Ooh, nice.
There are first class rooms at the very
Right.
front, ladies' lavatory here, and gentlemen's lavatory here.
There weren't
The
bathrooms
grand
inside each room? Well, I guess that would make everything more expensive. Not that this
staircase,
wasn't already expensive in the first place.
and of course some exits to get out onto the promenade.
Mm.
Here's the first class reading and writing room,
Oh yeah.
and the first class lounge.
I'm pretty sure this part shows up a lot in the movie Titanic. I actually haven't seen it yet, but I've seen clips.
The aft grand staircase, two more first class rooms, and then the first class smoke room. This is where the men would gather after dinner
Right.
time. The last is the veranda cafe and palm court, which served refreshments for the first class passengers. This is B deck, also known as
Bridge
the
deck.
bridge deck.
B for bridge. I don't think that's why it's called. I think they're just labeled A, B, C, D, F, G, for convenience.
Towards the front of the ship, we have the forecastle deck. We saw this
Yep.
earlier in the video. And then this is the center section. Most of this is taken up by first class rooms. Plenty of access to the gentlemen's and ladies' lavatories. Some of the first class rooms actually have their own dedicated bathrooms. These are the parlor suites, each with a private promenade. It's about as nice as you could get on board the
All right.
Titanic. This is the first class boarding entrance. At the dock, this is where the first class passengers would come aboard the
Oh,
ship.
nice.
Here's the elevators.
When were elevators invented?
And both the forward and aft grand
Right.
staircase. This is the galley, pantry, and general areas to prepare food.
Oh,
The a la carte restaurant
à la
and the
carte. That's French for to the menu? I don't know.
Cafe Parisien. These were luxury dining
Café
options
Parisien. Oh, the Parisian Cafe, I think.
for the
I don't speak
first
French.
class. This back area here is for the second class
Right.
passengers. Stairways here, and then the second class smoke room. And as part of the B deck, you have the poop deck in the very back. This was used as the third class promenade. That means we have the first class promenade, second class promenade, and then the third class promenade. That way everyone had access to the decks up above. Okay,
All
C
right.
deck.
We're gonna get into the C deck next video because we're pretty much about halfway. All right. See you guys in part 2 of the What's Inside the Titanic video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.